व्हाट्सअप आकाश, क्या कर रहे हैं
What's
फिर
up?
आज हम लोग?
Today we are breaking down Big Dogs, the mix. Yeah,
नाइस।
excited. Let's go.
बहुत बढ़िया, चलो एक्साइटेड, लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड।
Yes, sir.
सो कैसे हम लोग शुरू कर रहे हैं? लाइक हाउ आर वी
Yeah.
गोइंग टू अप्रोच दिस सेशन?
So session is fairly simple, and I have the reference mix right here. I have the final mix, and I have the final master.
ओके।
So I'm planning to first break down the mix session. Let's see what the mix session has. I've mastered this in a separate project, so I'll be switching to that to show you how the mastering is happening.
करेक्ट।
So my process is usually divided into two. If I'm mastering my own song, which 9 times out of 10 I do, I keep some for the master, keep some sort of processing and some sort of tonal texture and all of that for the master. So that's pretty much how I'm going to break this mix down for you guys.
वेरी नाइस। सो बिफोर
Yeah.
वी जंप राइट इनटू द मिक्स,
Yeah.
मुझे ये बताओ दैट व्हेन यू फर्स्ट हर्ड द सॉन्ग व्हाट वाज योर रिएक्शन इसको लेके?
Bro, I was mind blown because of the production, and I've been hearing this song for a long time, understanding. I know what places where it started, and I know where it went. So I was like, yo, you know what, this is actually a good song. Let's see how much we can make it better. And my thing was, I wanted it to be in an international standard in terms of loudness, in terms of depth, in terms of everything. So, and the pieces fell in together. My brother Kalmi did an amazing job of picking the right sounds and just giving me, that's like the dream for any engineer. Just the sounds by itself working together, so that you can actually add some value to it rather than fixing things to make it sound normal. So I think everything, even the vocal recording, it was recorded by this guy called Amrit, and he's also done a very stellar job in recording and tracking HMK's vocals. And HMK, being the stellar performer he is, I think the pieces just fell in together. And if you see the mix session, it's fairly very simple. There's not much going on at all. Even I personally never thought it will go to this level.
Correct.
And it's wild. It's genuinely wild. It's just overwhelming, man. It's just every day you hear something new about the song. And me as an engineer, I'm sitting here because this song was mixed inside this room, which is possibly not untreated. It's not that good of a room in studio standards, but I'm sitting here and I'm seeing the song above a Billie Eilish song and above an Eminem song, and I'm like, okay, there's actually something. This is crazy.
Nice.
And that's pretty much the feeling I've been having for a while now.
वही बात है दैट हनुमान को तो कितने टाइम से हम लोग देख रहे हैं, ही हैज बीन अपलोडिंग सॉन्ग्स रेगुलरली एंड
Yeah.
ही इज वेरी ट्रू टू हिज आर्ट एंड
Exactly.
मेरे को लगता है आर्टिस्ट को ऑनेस्ट रहना बहुत जरूरी है अपने काम के साथ, बिकॉज आई सॉ वीडियो जहाँ पे उन्होंने बताया कि उन्होंने बेरली 15-20 मिनट में गाना कंप्लीट किया था.
Yeah.
So
He's
it
a
happens
beast when it comes to writing, bro. I've seen the dude literally, like, we'll be having a conversation and he opens his phone, he types a bar out and he'll keep it. And a while later, he would have written something, some other bar, some other time, and it will just sync. So he works in a very specific way, and and as a person, he's not the type of guy who'll be like, yo, you know what, this has to be this way. He'll know what you're capable of as an artist, as a producer, as an engineer, as a videographer, and he'll just let you do your thing. And I think that attributes to all the success this song has.
True.
So
नहीं, यही
yeah,
चीज तो एक्सपीरियंस है एंड अच्छा है, वेल डिजर्व्ड, बहुत मजा
definitely.
आया.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
सो बताइए
Yeah.
कैसे हम लोग स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं फिर?
So again, this is the first time I'm doing a breakdown, so don't mind any flaws and feel free to ask me any questions midway,
नहीं
or
नहीं,
we
बिल्कुल,
can.
वी आर हियर
Yeah.
टू लर्न एंड मजा आएगा, कुछ नई
Yeah.
चीजें देखेंगे.
Definitely. So first and foremost, sounding. The song came half completed when it came to me, because solely because of the recording quality and the sound selection of it. It
Got it.
was making sense. Nothing was cluttering anything off the bat. The kicks were tuned right. The drums were tuned right, which is very important in my honest opinion. And your drums being in the key of your song attributes to the loudness, the texture, and the tonality of the entire record.
Very
And
true.
I feel like it is very slept on, because again, it comes with experience, obviously. And Kalmi, being the producer he has a very good ear for every minute attack transient, release transient being in a certain key, and which I picked up from him in the past years. So point being, the production came very beautiful. Like all the stems, it was, you can see all the stems. There's pretty much it. There is like one kick layer, one snare, one hi-hat, one open hat. Those are the drums. That's it.
True.
And there's like two, like, it's basically one layer of sub bass, which I cut it into two for my own tweaks and all of that.
पैरेलल प्रोसेसिंग.
Not just parallel, treating it a little different.
ओके, गॉट इट.
And I'll get into the parallel stuff just in a bit. And vocals, you can literally see this is it. There's one layer of vocals throughout the track, and there were a lot of DTs and ad libs, but we came to a conclusion that this song doesn't need as much DTs. It needs to be one single layer right on your face,
Right.
so that the message gets, transferred, which I picked up from Jason Joshua, obviously, because I've heard him say in an interview, always search for that $1 million take, that performance is what will define your song. It
Absolutely.
attributes to the energy, to how loud your sound is being. I know it's weird, but it weirdly makes sense. So
Bilkul.
there's like 3 layers of DTs, and like again, one layer of ad libs just chopped and cut down into multiple layers for my purpose. But that's about it, man. That's
Very nice.
basically the backbone of the song.
So I think what we can do is, सबसे
Yeah.
पहले can we listen to the reference mix that you got, and
Definitely.
उसके बाद we'll see the final output, then
Definitely.
in depth देखते हैं.
Okay. So this is the reference mix sent by Kalmi after he produced. I don't think he mixed it. I think he just put the vocals and he just gave something for me to, understand how the song is. So
Right.
I'm just gonna play it from the start. Let's just play like 4 bars probably. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper, underground methods. Top-notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror, product of your errors. Pushing culture, baby, got that product you can measure.
Yeah.
क्या बात है? I can totally imagine what you did with the bass there.
Yeah. So now this is the final master.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper, underground methods. Top-notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror, product of your errors. Pushing culture, baby, got that product you can measure.
क्या बात है? Pretty good vibe.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So I would love to know what you did with the vocals right there, and especially the bass, because drums तो है ही punchy, they're sounding tight and सही है.
Let's get into it. So I'll just give you a brief explanation of my template. So this is a template I sort of picked up over the years of learning this from YouTube, from this engineer, that engineer. And shout out to Mix by Ali. He's been the reason why I started this. Like, I'm coming from a production background, taking this seriously is because just because how well Kendrick's songs sounded, Kendrick Lamar's songs. So even this template, the yellow colored coded stuff, I took it from Ali, because in his streams he has all subgroups, namely bass, drums, music, SFX, and vocals. And these yellow faders in his setup meant that he sent all these tracks to his SSL, and there he processed it. So it sort of clicked in my head. Okay, we don't have an SSL, but let's try to see if it works that way. So this template is basically that. I have all my bass going to my bass stem, my drums going to my drums folder/stem, music, sound effects, vocal dry, and vocal wet. So I have this thing where this folder, it has all the dry vocals, and all the effects come under this vocal wet section.
Oh, very nice.
So these are always there, ready to go. These are my vocal effects, reverbs, delays, ready to go. Whenever I need it, I just need to push the fader and I know what it's doing. So this will always be there, but it changes. The order and what I use changes track to track. So in this project, I've used only one reverb and one delay, because that was enough.
Yeah.
So, and all of this, my vocal effects, wet effects, and my vocals dry go to this vocal summing bus, and all the above, the music, the drums, the bass, sound effects go to my instrumental bus, which in turn goes to the mix bus, and so on to the master bus. It's a very fairly simple layout, and this gives
really
me
love वो enthusiasm दिख रहा है मेरे को ना, with the exclamation marks right there.
That's just, bro, I like to, like, that tells me that this is it, like, exclamation mark, done, don't touch anything more, don't do anything more, that's it. So it's just my brain processing certain tracks accordingly. Even the color coding, the same color coding goes through all my DAWs. Whatever DAWs I use, I follow the same color coding. It helps me think and not worry about where things are placed. Now, by this, I know what exactly the element is and where it is situated. So
makes sense.
That's pretty much the template. And going to the bass channels first. So there's 2 things here in the bass, actually 3 layers. So one is the bass melody, which is the foundation of the song, which is Yeah, this is the backbone of the song. Like ultimately, this is, I don't know exactly where he got from it. I think he uses Moog, or I'm not sure what exactly this is, but
Yeah.
it sounded, it gave the aggression the song needed.
Yeah.
And it is followed by a sub bass, which is, I'm pretty sure it's a Moog bass. And we have a Moog bass, which is hardware. I know that because he's told me that he took it from Moog and it had its own character. This is basically the bass stems. So
Very nice, man. I really loved the sounds, especially sub, because
Yeah.
the bass melody is in itself so complete, so fulfilling. And if I talk about sub, I've heard this sound a lot in many of the professional tracks.
Definitely, bro. That is just about. So, one thing, what we basically, our team, or what the kind of music I make or involve like myself with, is all of these guys listen to the similar music which I do. And most of them being Western hip hop and coming from a hip hop background. So, we sort of have this understanding of the fundamentals a little different. It is not like, if I show this to an engineer in our country, he might probably flip out because, yo, that's too much bass. That's too much low end. Do we need that much? But that I feel like has helped us, again, being my, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, like my influences are all Western people, like all mixed by Ali's, Kendrick Lamar's, Drake's, and all of their engineers. So the way I think, I feel like I'd like to give them the credit. Like I sort of think like them because those were my inspiration. Those guys are the ones who taught me how to do certain things in a certain way. So I think it's like that for all of us. Let it be
Definitely, man.
Hanumankind, let
Yeah.
it be Kalmi. So the way we think, the way the sounds being designed, the sounds being picked, sort of intuitively comes from there, I feel. So
नहीं, very true, because likewise,
Yeah.
that is the reason I respect your work a lot.
Thank
आपका
you,
है Hanish से I'm in touch. I am regularly exchanging my thoughts with him because वही है, somehow I feel कि you guys are into the technicalities, and I
Yeah.
still remember आपके कितने गाने मैंने सुने हैं, and I couldn't resist. I would just go to your DM and I would message you कि यार you did a wonderful job with this track, because it feels so good to hear such sounds, such sonics here.
Yeah.
And eventually that should be the aim, to represent our nation globally.
Definitely, bro. Definitely. Because whatever music you make, it is bound to get out of the country at some given
True.
point. So I don't think we should be limited by what this country is doing specifically to that kind of music. It could be a Hindustani record, but if it can be tracked through a Neve and sent to an SSL for its warmness and its punchiness, why don't we use that?
Absolutely.
It may or may not give the song what it needs, but I mean, it's an option which I don't want to completely remove from my vision,
True. So tell me one thing, Akash, कि
Yeah.
even though ये जो synths है, ये analog recorded है, analog
Yeah.
से play हुए हैं. So according to you, what makes analog different from digital? Because mixing तो you're doing digitally mostly अभी.
Yeah.
But hardware synths में what do you feel कि ऐसा क्या extra है जो digitally maybe वो चीज obtain नहीं हो पाती? Is there
I
anything?
think it's a very subjective thing more than anything. One thing I felt from the top is how clean the signal sounded. There is no digital interaction between how the sound is produced. It's produced in a hardware and it's directly got into the digital domain. There is no ones and zeros and binaries working to make that sound the way it sounds. So in that aspect, I just feel like it's a much more a cleaner signal. And I personally, I cannot differentiate. If you put a synth, let's say you have the same Moog bass in a synth version and an analog version, I don't think we can perceive that difference that much unless I open up an EQ and zoom in everything below 100 hertz and everything above 10K. And then I'll be like, oh, there's so much information in the hardware. That's the only difference. And
I feel there's a lot of difference in the modulation as well, क्योंकि analog में ये होता है, it's being run on voltage. So voltage fluctuations की वजह से थोड़ा सा उसकी वजह से you
Definitely.
get a few modulations, because I also saw a lot of breakdowns जहाँ पे analog synths use किए West के engineers ने, producers ने. So they used to mention this thing that if we play the same part twice, वो कभी same नहीं आएगा analog.
that's hardware. That's given with any piece of hardware, right?
And actually उसको हम relate कर सकते हैं that ones and zeros point that you mentioned with the preamps, कि why do many of the artists still record using preamps? They are not depending upon the compressors कि एक बार record कर लेते हैं उसके बाद compress करते हैं, because audio बन चुकी है waveform, ones and zeros हो चुके हैं. So
Exactly.
analog में ही processing करना is still better. इसीलिए even if
course.
mixing के वक्त people are not using hardwares या बहुत कम कर रहे हैं, but recording के वक्त they still prefer.
See, that's the thing, right? So this entire in the box, outside the box, if your recorded signal, it could be the kick drum which is in this song, it could be the snare drum in this song. If it is sourced analog, I don't still need an analog processor to do the work.
True.
Then I'm just using this as a remote control to make it work. Simple.
Bilkul.
So as much much as like, what do you say, the source, ultimately, I know you've heard this thousands of times and you probably preached it thousands of times. If your source is not hitting right, the mix will never hit right. Your source needs to bang. Your demo needs to bang. Your demo needs to tell the world that there is more room for improvement in the song. It needs to have that space. So I think
keep
that's
telling this thing to my students that
Yeah.
record as if कोई mixing ही नहीं है. Mix ऐसे करो जैसे mastering ही नहीं है. Produce ऐसे करो कि आपको पता ही नहीं है अभी गाना आगे mix होना है. Because वही है, that is the only key to improve sound selection.
Yeah.
If you think कि अभी produce करते vibe बनाते mix में ठीक कर लेंगे tones, I don't think that is fruitful.
That's a very big misconception which people have. I feel like, okay, you know what, they'll just, while making a song, they'll be like, yo, you know what, my mix engineer is gonna take care of this. Of course he's gonna make the track better than how it is, but it's only gonna get so much better because
Correct.
if your recordings have flaws, if your production has weak elements, if it has a lot of frequency holes, no matter what plugin you use, no matter what hardware you use, it's still gonna be the same shit but magnified into the bigger shit it could sound like. So
Definitely.
I think that's what, bro, that's why I still, every time I get a stem from Kalmi and anyone, like, these guys, if you get your sounds right, and Kalmi being the guy he is, he's used just the right amount of sounds. If you might have heard the demo mix and the master, the reason why it sounds different, because now he gave me so much room that I can do anything. I can push a signal to whatever extent and it's not gonna crap out on me. I know it's not gonna, because of the fact that the frequency balance is properly built, the foundation is built without any flaws. So that, and you might have seen multiple mix breakdowns, you might have seen any big breakdowns in the world, and everyone, if you see the demo mix and the final master, won't be that different.
True. उनकी तो processing भी minimal लगती है.
Exactly, very minimal. I've seen some sessions where they've used like one stock Cubase EQ, one stock compressor, and one stock reverb, and done, songs done. So that, that I think the country and a lot of us, it took me years to pick that up. I feel like people definitely should invest in their own tracking devices or a studio. Ultimately, there's a studio for getting the vocals done, because a beat can be so good sounding, and if the vocal quality is like has room resonances and you record it in a room, it's still not going to sound good. The mix as a product won't sound good. So yeah, bro, let's go into the individual elements.
Let's see क्या magic हुआ है इस पे bass पे.
It's absolutely nothing. So just the small information. I am accessing all my mixer tracks right here, okay? Just in case, because whatever track I click, it'll show me the mixer channel and it sends here. Just putting it out there. Okay? So bass, it's straightforward. This is the melody which Kalmi gave. Nothing crazy over here. There is a EQ where I'm like removing some side information from the lows, and I've taken down the top end considerably, like around 3-4 dB, just so that my vocals and the other instruments have space. And we know what an LA2A does, of course. I think it's doing probably a dB max, I'm thinking. 0.5 dB of compression just to tame everything and put everything on. So I just, more like a limiter. I'm looking at it like a limiter. And followed by a C4. So this C4 is a sidechain for the kick. So I'll get to why I've done it like this. And instead of like, a normal compressor just sidechaining the kick, I'll get that in just a bit.
Correct.
So there's just 3 plugins on the bass melody. And one thing to notice is all my basses are going to this channel called the main bass. Again, once I explain what the individual stems are doing, I'll go to the buses and I'll explain. Sub bass, again, simple. 22 hertz, 4 dB, don't need it. I know it's gonna cramp my limiter a little bit too hard if I let this go. So I've just contained a little bit. And 26, I think, is the fundamental of the song, the fundamental node of the song. Yeah, I just boosted it a little bit because why not? And just the standard default warm tape setting, just added a little bit of drive for some harmonics, not too much. It's not that big a difference. And even the bass melody, same. And now the Moog bass. So Moog bass is where processed a little extensively. And there is a neutron compressor. I use it because of the multiband capabilities, but I think I removed it after processing, and I really like how this plugin looks. It just makes me excited for a second. So I think it's doing. So if you notice the waveform right here, can you see the third hit every time it comes? Can you see how loud it's becoming? This compressor is just to tame that. And if you see, when I play it, it will only engage when the third hit comes.
Correct.
think the settings are also very basic, and it has a little bit of makeup gain to bring the overall sound. Then we have Saturn. Same. I like Saturn so much, again, because of the multi-band capabilities, but I'd like to color, since it's a Moog bass and I had everything I wanted, for you hear it without any processing. It's pretty much the same, but just that, it adds a little bit of texture. That's all I'm looking for.
That oomph as well as the harmonics.
Harmonics, exactly. And Saturn is doing the same. And Spiff, one of my favorite plugins of all time. And I use this to cut that transient because I wanted the transients only from the kicks and not from any other instrument, only from the kicks and snare primarily. So without this, you can hear that there is a small click which I know will hinder my limiter and my master. So I'll just play the delta signal so you hear what exactly is going on. That's it. Those clicks.
Amazing. I think बहुत अच्छी टिप है ये, because usually क्या होता है, we feel कि दोनों चीजें combine होंगी and आपस में मिलके एक strong sound बनाएंगी, but yeah, it's always good to make space. जो element का hit चाहिए, punch चाहिए, उसको lead में रखो. And
that's what, bro. I follow this philosophy. Again, I can credit a lot of engineers like namely Jason Joshua, Jesse Ray, whoever. The list goes on. If you've been on YouTube trying to understand how this mixing works, you know what I'm talking about.
Correct.
So what I've commonly realized is they never clutter their bus channels. They fix the problem individually when there is a problem. Because when there's multiple problems in small stems and when it keeps compounding, it creates a big problem when it goes up. So I'd like to clear everything out because I want to hear it right. I want my individual stems to sound beautiful. Simple.
Bilkul.
And after the spiff, once the transient has been controlled, again, same LA2A, it's same like we mentioned earlier. 0.5. That's it, 0.5. Exactly 0.5 and a little bit of makeup gain. And there is this soothe, but it's sidechain to my kick.
Oh,
this is something I picked up from Jason Joshua again. So every time my kick hits, instead of entirely ducking the signal, wait, I'll just show it to you. This only ducks the frequencies 400 and below. So whenever my kick hits, this is like my final, this again, I'm thinking of all of this because of loudness. All my transients are super controlled. It's not going to get in the way of anything else. Now, only my kick transient is in front of me. Not the bass, not the snare, not the hi-hat.
I mean, that's
so
amazing,
this makes sure.
I never thought Suit 2 को इस तरीके से we can use it because I usually use track spacer इस चीज के लिए.
Okay. I've never used track spacer. I've used it once or twice. I've never really gotten into it. Soothe, I've been using it mainly for vocals, but lately I've been using Soothe only for this and nothing else. So even the settings here are pretty simple: fast attack, fast release, and everything below 500 has been scooped down, and then it has the sidechain function on, and I'm sidechaining my kick to this. So only the low fundamental kick frequencies are triggering this, and in turn ducking those same frequencies.
Right.
So that's pretty much about the individual layers in the bass. But now coming to the bus processing and a little bit of character I added to the song. So all of these basses are going to this bus called the main bus. Again, there is another Soothe instance of Soothe. This is to the same thing, but as a group, because now we have this melody. And now my kick is controlling the bass as an entirety. So my kick is separate now. I got
so good.
Thank you. I got the separation I needed. This is the final separation I needed from the song.
True.
Then there's an EQ. I've dipped 60. I don't know why. Yeah, it's because I have this analyzer after my processing, just so that finally, again, it's all about control, because I know I've done certain moves. Now I need to control it. I need to make sure it's not pushing anything. It's not making my plugins work hard. So I've just used this analyzer from the drum bus, and I have just ducked a dB 1.8 some dB of 60, because that's where the kick lives. So space control, simple. And again, a tube compressor just to uplift everything, put it on lock, and all of this is going to the bass bus. So I'll tell you why I have two bass buses. Again, it's all about control. Here I haven't used it, so let me just change the color so it's a little visible. So these are my wave tracks, right? All of this is going to main bass.
Correct.
But if I want to increase the width of this main, the comped signal of all the bass, instead of me going and sending it all to one channel, now I have this main bass aux box where I can send it to whatever I want.
Correct.
So in this case, width. And this width and the main bass is summed to my bass bus.
All right,
Again,
everything
control.
together. Yeah.
One more step of control. So here I can just affect the actual stem, the comped version of these stems, but I'm also adding a signal here, which happens to be a parallel processing width. So how do I control that with together? So I group this and the main bass to a channel called bass bus. In that way, I can extensive control if needed.
Yeah,
in
makes
this
sense.
in this sense, I only needed an L2 just to give that ceiling. It's mainly a gain knob. I used it as a gain knob and nothing more. I've just pulled down 2 dB to get the gain stage right. And gain stage, you know how important it is. I do it after every process. After adding processing, I'll calculate how much dB has been added and I'll reduce it accordingly if needed.
True. And it'll tame the peaks also in case agar kuch hota hai. वैसे तो everything has been fixed, but still, yeah.
This is just, a safety blanket per se.
True.
So that's the base. And now I have a width. I have this aux. So all my parallel processing effects are in a certain color. So this one is to add width. And if you notice, it's only there on the Moog bass. Remember when I told you this neutron compressor, it only engages when the third hit comes?
Correct.
So this third hit, that hit really gave me my stack phase. So I thought, okay, this is a good place. We can actually make this work with the song. So what I did, I only sent that hit to a separate parallel layer.
Right.
Okay, if you notice, every time that big waveform or the third hit comes, it goes to the bass width layer. And here I have a Saturn 2, which is it has an amp setting, meaning it has a very substantial sound to it. And we have an EQ, which is cutting off all the lows and highs, just keeping the mid range. And it has a micro shift, so it splits everything to stereo, and a limiter to increase the volume and contain it. So this signal by itself sounds like that's it.
Oh, wow.
And it'll only come during those sections. Now when I play it with this Moog bass, you'll see. So how this helps is it gives me another layer of dimension, which people can't probably hear it, but they can feel it. They'll know something is different. And this comes in very peculiar sections of the song. So if I play it with the drums, just the drums and the bass. These are the things I'd like to do just to add some dimension, just some moment in the song, make the song feel like it's not static. Because I'm not a fan of, constant automations, constant changing. This is a fairly undynamic or non-dynamic song. This song this has to hit hard. So considering all that, wherever we can add space and dimension and character to the mix, I feel like that will go a long way. Small steps like this, I'm pretty sure nobody would have noticed this, but I know I've done this and I know this is doing something, so I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I know if an audio file or someone who's interested in listening into that part, he's going to pick it up. And in the broad, bigger picture, they'll just feel as if something is going on, and that will attribute to them listening to it more.
I really love how much emotions you put into a song, because that sound initially जब सुना हमने उस बेस को, तो ऐसा लगा कि थोड़ा सा डक कर देते हैं to hide that imperfection, but उस imperfection को आपने किस तरह से beautify किया, वो चीज़ बहुत सही थी.
Definitely. And I feel like since I've been producing, I think I'd like to credit that part also. Since these are all standard production techniques any producer can think of, and adding them to a mix will make the song even better. The thing is, you need to make the song breathe. That's all. However you do it, it's up to you.
True.
So with what I had, this is what I could do for this section. Now I think we can go into the drums. Again, very simple. So there's literally 4 stems in the drums. That's it. Nothing more. There are some sound effects, but I don't think they come under drums. Those are just separate. I'll get to that. So kick, fairly simple. Same. I have the same routing process going on. My kick is going to a parallel, and the parallel signal and the actual kick signal is going to this kick bus, where I can control the parallel and the actual signal together. So in the kick, I don't know why I did this, but I just let it be. Wait. Yeah, that seems like there is 0.2 dB boost in 1111 hertz. I don't know why, so I'd like to skip.
Maybe you like that number.
Nah, bro, I don't. I honestly, I don't remember why this is. But yeah, and this plugin I tried. I wanted the kick to produce some subs even initially. So I added this plugin where you can select the frequency range and it adds that extra air in the bottom. But it's disabled. It's muted. mute it because it didn't feel good. So I ended up not using this. So this signal, this process signal is going to a kick parallel.
Right.
So here have a heavily compressed, I use DBX for like slamming type compression.
Definitely.
Like it's going to slam the shit out of your signal. So I just sent it there.
Fixed attack, fixed release.
Yeah, it's going to slap. I got a new transient over here. And what I did, I boosted 60 hertz from it, like 2D up to 2 dB of 60 hertz.
Okay.
And I cut 5K completely because I wanted that low end. Remember what I was just telling you about low air giving me that low end. This wasn't giving, so I chose a different route.
Very nice.
So I sent it to a kick parallel, slammed it, so I get the transients out. And without this EQ, you'll see how much of transients it gave me. Can you hear that click? That is going to mess up the kick. So what I did, I used this EQ, and if you see, I've attenuated 10 dB of 5K and boosted 60 hertz. So this, blended it in with the kick, sent it to the kick bus. Now I got that extra. And there is a small compressor doing, I think, a dB or so. Now it's containing everything. The kick is round.
Nice.
That's pretty much it for the kicks. And going back to the snare, going to the snare, similar, simple stuff. Spiff, we have spiff again.
Correct.
Transient control. I wanted more transients, I think. So I'll just play without anything. This was the snare I got. And it became this. So now we've added a lot on the low end. We added a lot on the bass. So now we need the snare to keep up, else it's going to be somewhere in the mix. I need the snare to slap harder than the kick, but not being louder than the kick. So that's the idea behind it. Again, spiff, basic. This is what it's doing. It's adding this extra punch.
And it's like layering a snare altogether.
Yeah, pretty much. And dip down 0.5 dB around 200. Because of that, I know my kicks, low mids are also somewhere here. It could have a transient there. So a little bit of control, and boosted 3K a little bit, again 1 dB, just so that it pops out a little bit more. And it goes to my snare bus, where I've done some drastic transient design where the attack is all the way up and the sustain is there, but I've used it in parallel. There's only 51% of it. Yeah. And output control, just because it adds a lot of volume after you increase the attack. So I've tamed it. And then a little bit of tube saturation. We all know this plugin. It's a free, one of the best free plugins out there, and it adds a little bit of body to the snare, followed by another EQ. This time a little bit more on the 9K, a good cut on 400 to reduce the muddiness.
True.
This one, this is the resonance I don't want to hear. Yeah, that's about it. That's the snare, straightforward, to the point, done. And I think, there is a snare plate. So I've sent the snare to a plate to give that a quick decay, a very fast reverb, just to fill that space so that the snare doesn't feel like it's in the center. That's it. You can't really hear it, but you can hear it.
Yeah.
So that's
it's
pretty much
all about creating that perceived space.
Exactly. How do you know if something has dimension if there is nothing to counter react to that?
True.
You know it's a stereo signal if the signal is one-sided. If it's in the center, you can't tell if it's stereo or mono. You can hear it in both your headphones, but the signal could be mono.
Yeah,
the moment you push it a little bit, you know, okay, my right side is off balance, so I need something.
Correct.
So creating that spatial sense, basically. So snare, again, this is a drum air preset. I think this is my favorite preset of all time. Yeah, it's here, drum air. It gives me that immediate drum room feeling I need, and then I tweak the decay and pre-delay and the bass multiplier based on how the song and the sound needs. So I think right now let's move to the hi-hats and let's see what we've done there. And as you see, there's absolutely nothing on the mixer channel for hi-hats. There's only a gain knob / mix tool. This is a inbuilt gain knob where I just had to reduce the gain a little bit. And same with open hi-hats. There's a normal hi-hat and an open hi-hat which comes towards the ending of the song, middle at least. So here all I've done is taken a little bit of highs, 7K-ish, just so that it's not, I think it's a resonant frequency. I'll just show you. Yeah. So I just didn't like this, and just a small notch on that. And all my percussions are going to this percussion bus. Again, if you see the channel, there's absolutely nothing going on.
Very nice. So basically, ये जो signal था, was it stereo from the production stage?
It was.
Nice.
I mean, at least the stem I got, it's fairly a mono stem, but since I think he produces in Ableton or FL, I'm not sure. It came as a stereo stem, so I left it as it is.
Correct.
I think open hi-hats, on the other hand, it was spanned a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I can see that. Left and right waveforms are a little different.
Yeah. So they came as stereo, so I'm using it as stereo. I'm not complicating it in any form.
Perfect.
Yeah. So as of now, we're done with the
Bass,
drum
drums,
processing.
yeah.
Now bringing it back. So I have routed all my percussions to this drum bus.
Okay.
So what's happening here? I'm sure a lot of people, engineers who've been on YouTube will find this instantly. There's a small processing going on. It's a studio rack and it has 8 NLS buses.
Oh, what's this?
So this I picked up from Jason Joshua again. That's his way of emulating his Neve and SSL board. So all this has is 8 different NLS buses, Waves NLS bus plugins.
Okay.
And so Studio Rack is basically a container. I just didn't have 8 inserts, so I just used this and I renamed this preset as Jason Joshua NLS thumb.
Nice.
So all it does is, I mean, it's basically just the plugin by itself. There's no tweaks. There are I think one of these knobs has a 0.5. So what this is doing is it's adding harmonics, and each NLS bus has a certain setting. So one is in mic, one is in spike, so on and so forth. It keeps changing, and I'm not sure why it does what it does, but it definitely adds a lot to the drum set. It sort of rounds the entire percussion.
So better to call it a secret sauce.
Probably it could. I mean, it's not a secret because it's there on YouTube. It's just that I understood how it works. So, and there is a panning plugin after it, because since we had so much analysis, it adds a lot of harmonics. The signal tends to pan a little bit to the left.
Okay, got it.
So that's just how this works. I am entirely not sure why it is the way it is. I just know that there are so and so settings, and it adds a little bit of harmonics every time you add one of these. And that in turn, it creates, like we discussed earlier, you know how analog signal, nothing is perfect. The modulation keeps happening. This adds some modulation and roundness to the track.
Kya baat hai?
And just because this is happening, the entire drum signal will tilt a little towards the left or the right. So just to overcome that, I've panned it a little bit towards the left to again bring everything to the center. That's about it. And then I added an EQ, boosted the fundamental and a little bit of mids for the body, followed by an L2 to bring it all up and also bring the ceiling down.
Right.
Again, control like we spoke earlier. So this by itself, if I do a before and after, you will see what it's doing. So this is before. Now it's after. You see how all the low end, it fattened everything up? That's pretty much it. And this is a godsend. This probably works on all tracks, but I don't use it as often. This really gives me that extra 1-2% of that fatness, which I can probably do this with a Pultec, which whatever, use an EQ. But something about this just gives me, or at least it tells me that it gives a sound and I like it. And
absolutely.
So this was added after all the processing was done. Sometimes in some sessions, I'll enable this first and then process it, but in this case this was added as the last last
basically
bit of
depends
touch.
upon the requirement, because after mixing the other musical elements, you must have realized कि थोड़ा सा drums को they need a push, so maybe
exactly that exactly is the reason. Also, this doesn't work on all tracks. I don't do this on every track. It is very, again, you just got to use your ears and trust it basically.
वो बोलते हैं ना ultimately कि एक अच्छा ऑडियो इंजीनियर जो है उसको पता है कि कब क्या करना है और कब कुछ भी नहीं करना है.
Exactly. If you see the entire rest of the session, it's fairly empty. You saw the till drums, you saw how minimal processing was. So now sometimes this won't work. I've used this in one of Berg's projects as well. I don't remember which song exactly, but it changed the entire drum sounding and both of us weren't really feeling it. So use this at your own regards. Be careful when you use this, but as much as you know what it's doing, you're in the safe. And if you know how, if it's creating a problem, you need to know that it's creating a problem. And that applies to any sort of processing you do on your mixes.
Right.
So that's pretty much it for the drums.
So what's next?
Next, music.
Okay.
Again, if you see, there's absolutely nothing in the music as well. So there's this synth melody. And again, this with context.
City with the big dogs. Fuck the laws, loyal with me, we ain't got a call. Zelly on silent, put the product in the pillar loud. That's how you make the money pop for everyone involved. And if you don't deserve a cut, then we gon' cut them off.
Man, I absolutely love the sounds. ये ऐसी sounds हैं कि it's like, 2 to 4 sounds combined together.
Exactly. Shout out to Kalmi, bro. So here, if you see, there is some, I think this is where I processed a lot. Again, this wasn't meant to be like this. I don't remember exactly. So most of the things I don't plan on doing something. It's just in the moment. I make sure I don't take more than an hour to get the basic mix done. So I like to be fast. I feel like that's when my decisions will benefit the song rather than creating problems for the song.
Very true.
So this was a part of it. So whatever, I'll try and deconstruct it for you, and let's go step by step. So first things first, low cut. I don't need anything below 30 over here, and there is a 92 hertz notch. Yeah. This signal also has some bass.
True.
And here I'm thinking there's already a bass on top in the exact same. There's that move bass we discussed earlier. So I don't want the low end of this to hinder that or cause any phase issues.
Correct.
So what I've done, I've tried to create space. So here, made it dynamic because again, cutting it entirely might take the energy and essence of the synth melody. So I've just made this dynamic, and there's a small notch around 180. Again, this is probably to give space for the kick and the snare. And here there is a 3 dB, 4 dB boost around 400. I think this is to add the body. And if you notice, even that is dynamic because it's a very dynamic situation here. I don't want my EQ to suppress anything statically because this, if you see, this adds that energy to the song ultimately when the progression happens.
Absolutely. And love the tension that is being created with that break.
Definitely. Because if you see here, there is a halftime thing going on. You see how stretched the sample sounds?
True.
So just to maintain, so when you stretch a certain sample, all the waveforms are also being stretched. So that wave is ultimately creating a new type of moment. That's why I've done all dynamic boosts and cuts over here. Simple. 400 is for a little bit of body, and I've increased sides from 1.4K. This is just the side image. Just again, like the entire track is not dynamic, like I mentioned, but I want some elements to be a little dynamic so it gives that human feeling of a song and doesn't sound like, it's squashed.
And because of this, wo sizzle bhi upar aa gaya, so you might have cut that thing.
Exactly. That's the next thing. So there's a little bit of, there's too much of top end, and I'm thinking, okay, at 10K, what else is there in 10K? Probably my vocals, air, and my hi-hats. So I need to carve a little bit of space for them. So again, dynamic cut is just cutting this. Not cutting, reducing it.
Yeah.
And it's creating a moment by itself. So without this, it's the same, but little bit of movement with the beat.
Energy. True.
Little bit, yeah. See, if you see my spectrum also, it's like maximum I'm boosting around 4 dB, maximum I'm cutting and reducing around 1 dB. So I'm still fairly keeping and retaining the dynamics of the actual sample.
Right.
And then it goes to this plugin, my favorite plugin for mastering. But here, I've only used this for this mono maker. So everything below 103 hertz is mono. So I could have just used another EQ, probably done a cut around like same 130. This is the same, but for some reason, again, being in the moment and trying to make it.
It's about that intuition, correct. If we mix a song 10 times, we're gonna, do different processing every time.
Exactly. So I just felt like this was quicker. And if you see the graph also, nothing has changed. I haven't done anything else apart from this mono thing.
Absolutely.
That's about it. So that's this synth melody. And then we have some horns later in the song. So this adds a lot of character to the hook, this stab horns. So with context. Yeah. So here you could see there's a little bit more processing involved. I'll tell you. I'll break it down. Again, I like what this plugin does to your sound. It sort of gives a little bit of harmonics without applying compression. If you see the threshold is at 0. This is a compressor, but it's not compressing. You can't It's not catching anything. Rather, just adding a little bit more body to the sound. This is something I heard a lot of people speak, and I also did some tests using plugin doctor. So when you pass a certain signal, a sine wave to this, and just boost the input, like drive it a little hard, it adds a little bit of third and fourth harmonic distortion. You probably won't hear it. I probably don't hear it, but I just know that it's fattening up the sound a little bit. So then followed by an EQ. Again, if you see, it'll be a little, it's all about carving space and letting the other instruments breathe.
Correct.
So here, cut at 230 because I'm thinking there is another synth melody right on top. So which one do I need to shine more? The one on above or one below? So key. All decisions are based on that. Even there's a mid. So here there are two mid bands. I've cut some mid range over from here, because I want a good vocal warmth and what do you say? Like the body of HMK's vocals is around the same area. See, 602K. Right. So a little bit of dip for that to pop out. And again, a little bit of boost as a whole to bring the body. And like we saw on the synth above, shelving a little bit down also.
Makes sense.
And again, there is a Spectre EQ. We all know what this does. It adds like a parallel saturation or whatever. So I've done with the warm setting. I like this warm setting a lot. It adds some, basically makes the signal a little warmer. So I've added a little bit of low end, a little bit of body to make up for whatever I've cut here. This is the next plugin. So cut here, transparent signal, cut here, added a little bit more with certain warmth. That's it.
Correct.
Then again, spiff. This time I've boosted it. I've boosted those transients. So that stab felt like it could give more energy. So I've just boosted it a little bit. So it's like a statement. It's like, go and do that, like that sort of a feeling.
Right.
Followed by a Saturn. Again, warmed it up a little bit in the low end. I mean, not low. Yeah, 1K and below, warmed it up. This one is doing nothing. Maybe a little bit of drive on the high. That's all.
Correct.
So if you hear it before, after, there might not be that big a difference, but I know for a fact all my transients which this is producing is controlled nicely now, and the perceived volume is also loud. It will stand alone in the mix. That is the idea.
Correct.
And followed up with an L2. And all my plugins, I use
signature.
I use like gain structure. I usually, so again, if I feel like, so even here, the first plugin, I've boosted so much input, so I had to make up. If you see that, I've reduced 10 dB in the output.
Correct.
So even in EQ, somewhere I would have done something to tackle that, just so that my before and after processing, the signal should be somewhat in the same level.
Absolutely.
To me at least. If not, it's gonna fight. You won't know it. Maybe it could get louder, but you might get convinced that, okay, it's sounding good because it's louder.
100%.
So just to know what we're doing and make sure we're in the right path, I do a little bit of before and after gain staging individually.
It's very important these days, anyway, a lot of plugins, they have this gain match feature in them.
But I choose to look at the meters and do it normally because the gain match, it's algorithm based, so you'll never know what it's picking up, and ultimately mixing is all about control, right?
Correct.
Even if you see, like even in my Pro C2, there's this auto gain, which is really good if you think about it, but you just don't know how it is calculating that gain, and that sort of bothers me. So I'd like to have extensive control over it. Even here, finally in the horns, this is to increase the loudness. Without this, with this, it pushes it a little bit up front,
True.
So that's for the horns. And there's this vocal hum thing which he said. That's it. This is the sound. This is like a transition sound in the song. And so I'll just play with context.
By the way, what you did is and we ain't worried about you. Watch me skirt the whip, yeah, swerving. Moving to the money like it's urgent. Hands on God, so I'm in it like a surgeon. The skin color like the bourbon. Worldwide sign and we face closed curtains.
Yeah.
Lovely, man. I can't emphasize on this enough, but the production, the sounds are kind of, so I'd say messy in a very beautiful way.
Exactly.
It's sounding clean, yet, the sounds are very fulfilling.
It's about, ultimately a song is about filling the spectrum, 20 to 20K hertz.
Yeah, but then they are complementing the story well. Like so
Exactly.
The sound is so subtle, but then it added that, feel that slow motion effect in the beat. So
exactly.
It's all about the story.
I think everything was like I said in the beginning, everything is complementing everything in the song, and I feel like that is one of the biggest reasons why it reached where it reached.
Correct.
And in this stem specifically, if you see the processing, I have a 1176, but it's bypassed.
Right.
So technically there is no processing on it. I would have done it for that, to control the transient. But again, coming back to the song not being as dynamic, let's keep some elements dynamic is the idea. So I just ended up muting this, and I can just remove this. This doesn't exist in this. So this is a clean signal, no processing, nothing, just gain staged.
Got it.
And the last music element is this siren. So I'll just play with context.
Only thing I'm breaking is her back with emotions. Woo! Yeah, baby, go bring out the good. The hoodie, now we turning out your buggy. Yeah. It's cool, I used to fight the bullies. Now I'm fighting with the law. I guess some things don't leave me fully.
Yeah.
Here is where, again, you still can or may not hear this, but it's definitely doing something.
Man,
I'll just show
filling
you.
that tiny space
Exactly.
which we didn't know existed.
Exactly.
Lovely.
Here also, so here, I don't know why this exists. I think it's probably for some gain stage, but it's at 0, so it's fine. And then, so I've done some automations here on this EQ. Can you see the automations? Yeah, I'll show you. Again, we don't need anything below 300. We don't need anything below 10K, but there is a movement I created on this. So it goes like, it's just this frequency. This is giving a new movement for the song.
Wonderful.
This, so you can't hear the synth, right? So only when it's peaking out, when I play it with the other elements, you'll be able to hear this automation alone. This is to give this. So usually this is the resonant frequency which I'd normally cut. But since there's space, why not make use of that and create something, some ear candy, some moment, some sort of depth. All of this attributes to that, I strongly believe.
Makes sense.
So that's pretty much it for the music thing. And there is a reverb send, but I haven't really used this. Yeah, it's just there. It's just there, but I haven't used it.
So I believe we have the effects now.
Yeah, sound effects pretty straightforward. It is all, see, I think, fairly no processing. So this one is a noise sweep. This is a very crucial thing in the song. This is for the video, I think. This helped the video to do, the SFX basically carried the video in a way, It stitched the video in a way, I'd say.
True.
Again, noise sweep, nothing crazy. I think just gain stage. Yeah, this is my gain stage setup over the top. So this is, I've just gain stage it a little bit. And we have the reverse synth. Reverse synth is, so this I had to control a little bit because I think this is also a hardware. I think it's from a Moog or a synth. I'm not sure. It's panned. It's panned and the right signal goes a little harder when that transient hits. This is without the processing. Can you hear that? Yeah. Just to avoid that, proceed to fastest attack and that's it. It's just dipping to around 2 to 3 dB only during that part.
Very nice.
And then a little bit of EQ for cutting the lows. Just that there is a hump, if you see. Can you see that? So we don't need that. Absolutely. So I just cut it. This is the only processing, I think. And here, there is a scissor cut effects. This you might have seen in the video. My barber got me looking proper. Again, gain staged. This is plugin. This is one of my favorite plugins lately.
Achha.
All this does is randomizes things. So here, okay, yeah. So the pan is at 100. So meaning randomly it pans 100 like with full power. So every time you play, the trigger, it takes the transient as a trigger and so I can probably distort it. I can probably increase or decrease the formants, pitch it up, time delay, some reverb. So I like this for quick fixes where I don't have to think too much.
Such an interesting plugin. I gotta cover this on the channel.
Definitely, bro. This was free for the longest time, and now I think it's a paid $20 plugin. I got it when it was free. So again, quick fix. I'm not hearing the panning anymore anywhere again. So I just, instead of using automation, instead of pan man, whatever you want to call it, just increase the knob and let it be.
Correct.
That's it. That's pretty much it for this effect. And there is a sword effect, no processing. So this comes right here.
My barber got me looking proper every single time. Fresh leg.
Again, gain stage, little bit of panning to the right. That's it. And then there is a riser in the end. Same, no panning, no processing, just gain stage.
Yeah, so we finding ways to cope there. Only thing I'm breaking is her back with emotions. Woo! Yeah.
Fairly simple, nothing to think about. Just again, didn't process it because it wasn't hindering any other elements in any form or aspect. So don't think too much, just keep moving forward.
Loved it,
Simple.
man. I mean, the sounds are pretty simple. They are so simple, but you know, eventually what matters is like where you use them exactly. So जिस तरह से वो context में बैठी हैं and story को complement कर रही है, they play a crucial role.
Definitely.
Intro से ही reference से समझ आ गया था because reference में the levels were quite loud.
Yeah.
Too good, man.
Here, see, that's what, like, if you get the sounds right, then an engineer's job is to tighten the screws. It
100%.
shouldn't, like, of course, having a production background definitely helps me better those sounds which are given to me.
Agreed.
Because most of the time I end up tweaking the drums. I'll be like, okay, let me replace the kick, let me replace the snare. That's there. But a well arranged song with a producer who can think each and every step forward, then the mixing job will be tremendously easy. Meaning we can go loud, we can do whatever we want. If the frequency spectrum is filled right, then you have nothing to worry about.
Very nice.
So I think we're almost there. We're at vocals now.
Probably the favorite part.
Has to be.
Yeah.
So first things first, you can see the waveform, you can see how beautifully it was tracked. I'm
Definitely.
pretty sure they were using some preamps, some hardware, definitely 200% because
Correct.
I can do a quick before and after without any processing and with processing.
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business.
With
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper.
Sounds so.
yeah, number one rule, bro. These guys did it right. They got the perfect recording, and it's not just about the gear. As a performer, this guy killed it. This guy, the breaths, wherever he takes his breaths, that attributes to the rhythm of the song. So this guy is a massive performer, and in the mic, he's a beast. So
100%,
his performance played a huge role as to how the mix came through, you know.
Correct.
And before processing, before touching anything, what I usually do is, again, like you see, gain stage and breaths and clicks and pops. I go manually and I clip gain it. I don't like automating the take like that. I like to see what the waveform is doing. So if I think the syllable is loud, I just clip gain it down.
Makes sense, yeah.
So a lot of clip gain here and there. And I think, the breaths have been edited out. I think I rendered it as a file so you can't see the exact breath edits. So first thing is cleaning up. I'd like to clean up my vocals completely before even touching the processing. I want the proximity. Proximity could be a issue because you might record the song in one take or you might record the song in 1 day or 3 days. But this guy recorded it in 1 take. But how you're placed in front of the mic definitely matters. So
Absolutely.
if you're going like this and the second take you're going like this and you're coming like this, all can be heard. As an engineer, I feel like I'm selling a performance. I'm selling what these guys hardly worked on. So the translation should be the same. It shouldn't, like, it's not just about EQing, it's not about compressing it. So first, proximity. How close are you to the mic? How far are you? Are you able to hear it? Mostly it'll be, on your EQ, you'll see the low end just dipping and going up, going up. So that is I take all precautionary measures to correct that first. If the performance is not right, I'd like to make the performance right and then start the processing. In this case, I think I did it and it's very minimal. And then I bounced it into place because to save some CPU, I don't like to see a lot of plugins in my sessions. That could also be a reason. So vocals are pretty clean from the get-go. So I just, these two vocals go to this bus. It's called the MVOX C. This is where I start the first stage of processing.
Got it.
So again, I'll just mute the beat for now.
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper.
If you see, I started off with the compressor because didn't have to EQ, didn't have to clear things out because the engineer who recorded it felt like he already did all that. So I didn't have to necessarily do again. So a heavy compression 50, the ratio is in 50 because it's going to catch the loudest peaks and it's going to tame down. But my threshold is in control.
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes.
0.1 dB, 0.5 dB compression maybe.
Can you just bypass it and play it once?
Yeah, you won't hear a difference, but see.
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big step. Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper.
It's just to catch those peaks.
Got it.
You
I
see
can
all these
actually
rogue peaks.
sense it, huh?
Yeah, a little bit, just to make sure. Again, I don't want this to clutter my limiter, this to fight with my snares.
True.
Instead of using one compressor to control all the peaks, I use multiple compressors, multiple EQs to control the peaks, so it's even more cleaner. Because end of the day, it's a digital thing. This compressor, whatever compressor you use, it solely relies on the signal, and you just don't know what exactly it can do. So using one compressor to entirely tame this is a nightmare. I don't think I'll do that. So first things first, a compressor. Then one of my favorite EQs of all time is an SSL based emulation, and I love SSL. So my influences for music production when I started off was Dr. Dre, and he's one of the biggest SSL users in the world, and I think he's infamous for that. Ever since that, I started implementing SSL, thinking, oh, okay, this is what Dr. Dre uses, so let me use it. That's how it started. But now I know these plugins inside out, so I know what sound it gives. Every SSL emulation gives a certain sound, and this I feel like is the most transparent yet clean in my opinion. This and the SSL native. So a little bit of boosted 8K around 1 dB for some air, and 4K some mid range and high mids. There's a good 3 dB boost and a little bit of 200 boost just to give the body. So without this,
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business.
This is just a little bit of tonal shaping EQ.
But it sounds so smooth even after those boosts.
Yeah. Again, it's not much. It's fairly less. It's 3 dB. Again, this 3 dB on a different recording, on a home recording, would have cost more. I would have heard more
100%.
room noises.
Yeah.
So coming back to getting the recordings right and getting the, takes crystal clear matters. What mic you use matters. Everything matters. So very little work. And I love this plugin. It adds a little bit of harmonics and saturation to the signal. So this adds that body. This adds that extra layer of oomph.
Yeah.
So without this,
wait a minute, get it how you live it. Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper.
I'll just exaggerate this to show you what this plugin does.
Big stepper, underground methods, top notch hoes get the most.
That extra harmonic, extra tear. You see how the synths are tearing in the song. It feels like someone's tearing the synths.
Right.
So just to keep up with that and make sure the vocal is in the center. Ultimately, vocal is the most important element. You can any song. So just to make sure it pops out in the mix, a little bit of saturation and a little bit of say I've reduced the output gain. Again, gain staging. And finally, C4. So this is my glue compressor. You can find C4 in all of my mixes. This is my finalizing, this is what keeps every dynamic in place. So this is tuned to taste, nothing, no specific settings or anything.
Big stepper, underground methods, top notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror, product of your errors, pushing.
If I go to any part of the song,
boy, for the ones who gone, R.I.P.'s in your memory, we carry on. When I die, it will not bury me, not what I want. But my body, put my ashes in the river, y'all.
Yeah, this is just
pretty controlled.
Yeah, this controls a lot. But that too, I make sure I don't go beyond 2 to 3 dB.
Correct.
This is just because the performance is dynamic, and I'd like something to basically trap the resonances and not let it leak into the next processor, because we're not done yet.
Correct.
This is my stage 1 of vocal processing. This is sum 2. This bus called MWOC.
Right.
Now I have the cleanest of cleanest signals for effects, for vocal effects, for reverbs and delays, and I don't send until my signal is crystal clean and it's sitting in the mix. I don't send it to any delays or reverbs.
Yeah.
But there was one thing I needed. I needed a little bit more. I wanted the vocal to be super upfront, because if I play it right now, it will go well with the mix. But I'll show you.
Big stepper, underground methods, top notch hoes get the most, not the lesser.
So it's somewhere inside the mix.
Too much contained, correct.
Yeah. So how do I bring that out? I could probably go increase the input, the fader volume, but again, I'll have to control it. So here comes my parallel sense for vocals.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. Now these two are come to this layer. Now I'm sending this clean layer to all 4 of these.
Nice.
One is the Fairchild parallel compressor. So what I do is I just go ham. I just maximum input, maximum threshold, fast attack and release. What this does to the signal?
Big stepper,
It squashes it, right? And I blend it back to taste. So this take,
hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror, product of your errors. Pushing culture, baby, got that product you can measure. Trendsetter, the one who get the weather, swerving while I'm bumping.
This brings the vocal up front.
Solid.
This brings it to the front of the mix. Because it's a bass heavy and hard hitting song. It tends to go inside, and you saw how much we cut, how many surgical stuff we did. This is to make up for all that and get
And
the
also,
tiny details.
Just for the audience, जो भी amount Akash कर रहे होंगे यहाँ पे dial, that would be with respect to the track,
Definitely.
not in solo, because people would be intrigued कि let's try out parallel processing, but then they would be making good tones in solo and not listening to it in context
Definitely.
to the track.
And I'd like to clear this. I'm only soloing this to show what it's doing. This is not how I mix. I go full hot all the time. When I'm mixing vocals, I tend to mute the music.
Big stepper.
And I just keep the drum and bass alive, and I mute everything else.
Big stepper, underground methods.
This is to get a balance in my head that my vocals are on point. It's not fighting with it. So I'm always mixing in context, just clearing it out.
Yeah.
So one of the first sense, it's a Fairchild. You can use anything, any sort of compression, glue compression, whatever you want. Just mac it as much as you can and bring it up so the quieter details come in front of the song. And I also have the similar sort of thing as another aux, same mechanism, same slam compression, using a different compressor because this gives a different tone. But I didn't end up using that on this. It's muted. The faders are low. It's not adding anything to the song.
Correct.
And third, I have a doubler. Pretty standard stuff. Just the basic waves doubler is to add a little bit of width to the signal. So it goes from...
Big stepper, underground methods, top-notch hoes.
You can't actually hear it, but it's adding a little bit of a cushion. So if I exaggerate it...
Big stepper, underground methods.
So I've just tucked it in till I can sort of hear it. And then I have this air band. I think I took this from Alex Tume, Young Thug's engineer, Young Thug, Future. So they all work with 2-track beats. The beat will be mixed and they'll want the vocals and they want that pristine top end. 9 times out of 10, no matter how many high boosts you do here, it is still going to reflect the overall curve. For example, if I'm boosting, let's say I want some 12K boosts here. If I'm boosting around 12K, it's not just the 12K which is being boosted. Everything below is also linearly being boosted. Sometimes it just might not work. You wouldn't want that. So they came up with this parallel aux called the Air. I started implementing it in mine. So what this is
Oh, nice.
remove everything below 9K and it's in linear phase because it's in parallel. And
Absolutely.
if you use it in zero latency, it's going to create phase issues. So it's in linear phase. All the signal does is isolate the highest of frequencies and I'm hitting it with a compressor just so that that signal doesn't peak and create dynamics.
Correct.
So this signal by itself sounds like this. So with context, all I have to do is I'll listen to the track.
Big stepper, underground
And when I push this fader on top, see what it's doing to the signal.
Big stepper, underground methods, top-notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror, product.
So in the bigger context with the instrumental, me pushing this will again bring the vocals a little bit more up front.
Correct.
Big stepper, underground methods, top-notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror.
Yeah.
Is there any panning going on in that layer?
In the air layer?
Yeah.
No, it's a very, it might be, no, it's just a little off phase because of the linear
so
phase.
It's the phase which is making it go.
Little bit. That's why we use linear phase over here. Because if we put it in the dead center, if it's a natural phase, or sorry, zero latency, it becomes in the center. And the same 9K and above in the main vocal is also there. So that will create some phase cancellation.
Somewhat like comb filtering and all, because they also create this perceived width, but actual mein the signal remains mono.
Exactly. This is not, this thing definitely adds width, but that wasn't the intention. This is to again get the high, that pristine top end, have a separate band, just imagine an EQ, but it's a fader. This is just an EQ. This is just a top shelving EQ. That's
I couldn't see anything. No? That's why I asked if there's any magic automation going behind it.
It's just the linear phase. Yeah.
Superb.
So that's, and all of these. So now coming back to the routing again, 2 voxes, 2 stereo tracks going into the main tracks, the clean layer which I was talking about, this layer feeding all my parallels, and now all my parallels are there, but how am I going to control it? So I send this and all my parallels to this main vocal bus. So I have extensive control over these also. And here is the final stage of vocal processing. Soothe, I like the vocal DSL preset. I think it does a really good job. So it's basically that. It's just that top end. because again, same 8K, 9K, which I added, that tends to add more harshness. This is going to put everything in place. Followed by a Pro Q3 2K, just to bring the vocal more forward. Yeah.
And I can actually remember that you had cut this same frequency in one of the music
Since, yeah,
Correct,
exactly,
correct.
exactly. It just happens. It just happens. I just know, okay, these are the frequency spots which I need to tend to. If I'm cutting something somewhere, I need to bring it up from somewhere. Else it's going to feel like it's lossy. It's going to feel loose.
Yeah.
So it's just about that.
Got it.
And then this is
it's my favorite plugin.
Bro, this thing, I'm telling you, this adds a lot of body because it works in parallel, and I have my default preset. It's very simple. This is adding a lot of that body. It's the same frequency split which is there in C4, I'm guessing, or it could be the basic frequency divisions also. And then I just pull in.
Big stepper, underground method.
So this part, the low mids, is where usually most of the energy is. So I'm controlling it a little harder. This one.
Underground methods.
And bandwise,
Big stepper, underground
once that's done, volume tends to go up, so I've just compensated the volume for it. Finally going into Saturn, just a little bit of, what have I done? Yeah, it's actually nothing. Everything is in default state apart from the mid band. I've increased 0.6 dB in the mids alone and given it a tube character. So always while mixing, we need to think what the other elements are also doing, right? Now that I'm breaking it down, I'm soloing it and I'm telling you I did this because of that. But when I'm doing this in context, this is like second nature. You automatically tend to do all of this.
100%.
So yeah, man, I think that's pretty much it for the main vocals. And once we get all the signals here, including the parallels, now it's time to send them to reverbs, delays, and everything. So I've just sent it to a room channel, I think. Yeah, there is a room and a delay, tape delay. That's pretty much it. So room is again one of my favorite plugins of all time.
Oh wow.
711 reverb. It's one of the best sounding reverbs out there. So
big stepper, underground methods.
Without this, see, it's actually a room preset. I didn't touch it. I didn't change anything. I just let it there. So I'll just mute this and unmute it, or actually I'll do it here if it's visible. So you will see how much of a difference this small room emulation can give. So without this,
big stepper, underground methods, top notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror, product of your errors. Pushing culture, baby, got that product you can measure. Trendsetter, the one who get the weather. Swerving while I'm bumping Project Petter. Yeah, big stepper, underground
that's it.
Lovely.
So this is giving that dimension. That's it. This is the only reverb in the vocals.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering when we started this mix breakdown that how do you have so many effects when I could
so
to any.
This is, see, again, I'll
That's
just break it down.
Correct.
My template, these are the reverbs and delays and effects I use a lot. So again, there's another type of, this is an ambience. It gives me a different sort of texture. And this is a room. There is a tape delay. There is a plate reverb. This is mainly for ad-libs. If there's any ad-libs, I like this reverb. It's that long, lush reverb. And H delay, quarter note, H delay, half note, and another choice of reverb. Delay. I keep this ready, and my main vocals, the fader I just showed you, it goes to everything in my template. So while mixing, let's say this is how, like,
big stepper, underground methods, top notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror, but
I get my options real quick. All I have to do is push the fader, see what it's doing. If I like it, immediately lock it. Don't think twice.
Very nice.
I don't like thinking while mixing, bro. I feel like if I'm mixing, I need to mix. I need to be in the moment. I cannot afford to think, even for if it's 2 minutes, okay, how should I deal with this? No, I can't do that.
That's
I feel like, yeah. So tape delay, I think it's a reverb delay throw or something. Yeah. Tape delay is also there only in the end.
Oh, okay.
he push your luck.
So I've only sent it for that phrase.
He push your luck.
So technically there is only one reverb and no other effects in the song.
Got it.
And coming to backgrounds, same process as above, making space
for the lead vocals.
Lead vocals, compressing it, containing it. And I like this Haas effect, which puts...
Lovely.
Yeah, so this is the DT.
Big stepper, methods. The most, not the...
But you can't hear this because I didn't want this to be loud and prominent.
Right.
Same goes with the next one. Creating space for the main vocals. Here, I've used a different SSL.
Big stepper, underground method.
This is in center. So I wanted that top end a little bit from here. This has a different... This take by itself, like, I'll just play where this comes a lot.
You like this? How you live like this? Why you worry about it, ho? Get up on my day. Get up on my way.
So a little bit of top end, because without this...
You like this? How you look like this? Huh? Why you worry about it, huh? Get up on my dick. Yeah, get up on my way. What you then it says?
There's just that air candy. This
got
is
it.
sort of creating some sort of texture for the
Man,
main
I love his
vocals.
delivery. I love his accent. So
Definitely.
unique.
Just, I think I use this only for that 14K boost. So this plugin, 14, 15, 16K boosts are beautiful and musical. So I use this a lot.
I do this quite a lot on my SSL whenever I use it on ground.
So for boosting, I really like analog model plugins. For cutting, I like digital. I try to stick as much as I
I'm
can.
using only like the only SSL thing I have is my SSL Fusion.
Oh, the hardware?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I just
beautiful.
sometimes use a compressor, this thing in the box, but I prefer, mastering some of my tracks on that only.
Yeah, of course. You just run it through, you get a certain sound signature.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Can we discuss something about that section, that the low pitch section? Like, did you process them differently or was
Okay,
it the same?
so it's called Chopped and Screwed. It's a very Texas thing. Texas musicians and Houston musicians and rappers, they have this chopped and screwed version.
Yeah.
So where you send a song, they'll pitch it down all at once, slow it down. It's that signature.
Correct.
But I didn't do that here. How that happened was me finishing the mix completely before mastering, sending it to Kalmi, because that was Kalmi's idea. And he did it on Ableton or FL Studio, I'm not sure.
So it actually happened once the mix was done.
Yeah, because the song sounds different here. I'll just play it to you.
Money on my mind, we gon' run it up. See what you gon' find, baby, push your luck.
It doesn't exist in the actual song.
Man, what a creative decision.
Yeah, so only the song, if you see, this is the demo, but the actual song ends here. So I mixed the entire song, sent it to them because I could probably do it, but they have a version which they like. And me trying to replicate that here will create more iterations, which we didn't want. Okay, fine. So let me mix the track. So I sent the mix, complete -6 dB mix. Then he did the chopped and screwed version. He sent that back to me. Then I mastered.
Got it.
So he just pitched it down. And in FL, you know how easy it is to pitch the entire track down.
Yeah.
There is a knob somewhere on the top left where you do that. I think something like that. I'm not sure exactly how he's gone about it, but that was him.
Got it.
So this is just a placeholder. This part of the song is a placeholder for that section.
But it sounded pretty clean.
Yeah.
I thought it was already done before the mixing stage.
No. We wanted, even if it's saturating and distorting, fine, because chopped and screwed versions are done like that. If you take it's like taking a vinyl player, playing a vinyl, and then slowing it down. You don't have control over the individual elements. Same concept here.
Very nice.
That's about it, man. I think a couple of more layers, and it's fairly simple. All these backgrounds go to this BGVC layer just to have control, and I have this one extra layer. What is it doing?
Big dogs.
Distortion.
Yeah, rolling through the city with the big dogs.
That emphasis on big dogs. That's it. Again, one of my favorite saturators of all time. Use that, cut lows and highs because I only want the saturation to be heard, and then did the Haas again. So that's that. And we have another layer.
Get the most, not the lesser.
I think I might have copied this chain from the previous layer, possibly, because again, you cannot hear these layers. If I played just the vocals.
Most, not the lesser. Straight terror. Product of your errors. Pushing culture, baby, got that product you can measure. Trends.
This is more like a delay.
Very
delay
nice.
throw.
Yeah, actually, I was about to say that.
So just to keep it a little different, same, little bit of compression.
Most, not the lesser.
And I tried Haas, but again, it became like this.
Get the most, not the lesser.
Didn't want
Absolutely,
that because we already have something. So that's it. Muted it, added a limiter for gain stage and pushing it up. And we got
top notch hoes, get the most, not the lesser. Straight terror. Product of your errors. Pushing culture, baby, got that product you can measure. Trends.
That's it.
Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's fairly simple. That's what, bro. I don't think this is. For all of us, I think this is one of the easiest songs we've worked on because I have mixes of Hanumankind. I think it was "Go to Sleep" or the previous song, and it was fairly even more difficult to pull it off. This one is just simple. You saw the session, and even the ad libs, everything is very little bit of sounds.
Got
Yeah.
Yeah, this is for the intro.
Maybe it's about the energies because when I was also discussing this thing with my students कि this song might not be कुछ ऐसा कि जो किसी ने बनाया नहीं कभी, like
Fair.
it might not be that unique, but the video, the production, the mix, the performance, everything is complementing each other so well that I feel that is the most important thing, and ultimately it's all about the energies. सिर्फ production गाने को viral नहीं कर सकता या सिर्फ vocals नहीं कर सकते, एक पूरी story important है, and everything about this song is so perfect.
Yeah.
I तो heard this song when it was just it just released because because I keep listening to Hanumankind, and it was a fascinating song. I loved the character that was there in the video, the whole story. Like, it was amazing. He was kind of looking like Freddy. I told one of my students, I remember, yeah, Freddy wala look. But then, that personality, the song, everything was suiting each other so well.
Exactly. That's what, bro. All perfect pieces of the puzzle. It just fits.
Absolutely.
And in my career, at least, this song was a strong testament for that.
Definitely.
I've mixed a lot of songs. Every song, I have a lot of personal favorite mixes and all of that. But none of us were ready for how this song was going to become. Like,
correct.
Even after the release. And one thing I'd like to point out is every hit song, what I have listened to in my experience, I'm talking pure strict hip hop or top 10 Billboard charts or whatever. Every song is so simple. There is,
absolutely.
You hear everything, every decision. As an engineer, as a listener, even as an audiophile, if you listen to a song, you hear the minute details of a song. That's possible only when there is less stuff going on in the song and not more. If it's cluttered and cloudy, you probably will like only the vocals. You'll think, oh yeah, it's a good vocal performance. But if you take even the latest Not Like Us, the Kendrick Lamar hit, song is so simple. There's probably 6 layers on the instrumental. There's like 1 layer of the vocals. There is no backing vocals. So keep it fairly simple, bringing back Jason Joshua's, ideology. That $1 million take is what I always search for. Like, if I get it, I'll be the happiest. I'll be like, yo, we got ourselves a hit.
I really, 100% agree with you, because ये तो मेरा bio में भी लिखा है, keep it simple, because I sort of realize this thing that we end up complicating things, but eventually वो होता है ना, सबसे सुंदर चीजें या सबसे बड़ी चीजें वही होती है जो बहुत simple होती है.
Definitely.
क्योंकि eventually you're making music for the masses.
Definitely.
और masses consume कर पाए जिनको music का M भी ना पता हो.
Needs to be accessible. They need to be able to predict what's coming. It could, and whatever we're speaking, doesn't just apply to the mixing part of it. It applies throughout. It applies to your arrangement, the sounds you pick, the way it is produced. It should be accessible. Even if you're introducing something foreign, it should feel local. That's when they'll be able to, like, okay, this sounds familiar. I like this kind of stuff. But let's say this just dubstep drops randomly here in the song. It probably will sound good, but a normal listener would be like, yo, what is this? Why is this randomly there? So it's about how you cater to your, not even audience. It's just basically how do you, like, you might have an idea in your head. How are you presenting it to the world? And how easy is that process? I mean, how easy is it for the next person to pick it up? I feel like that's very important while making a song these days. And yeah, man, that's pretty much it. So that's about it. For the ad-libs, did literally the same thing, nothing fancy. Everything you've seen above, I've just like probably copy pasted it. Like this, there's probably a pan man which just pans things just to add some moment in few ad-libs. That's it. Some pretty basic stuff.
Cut 'em off.
And same compression, same EQ, 14K, 10K boost. And it's applied throughout in the ad-libs. But one last thing we have in the mix is the crowd layer. So this adds a lot of tension in the hook. So this is with the processing. This is just the crowd layer.
Huh? What? Why you worry about it? Get up on my dick. Get up out of the way.
With context.
Everybody, watch this skirt up with. They ask me how you get like this, how you live like this. Why you worry about it? Get up on my dick, get up out the way. What you think this is? And we ain't worried about you. Watch me skirt the whip, yeah, swerving.
Here is where we needed to add a little bit of tension, a little bit of like anticipation and suspense. So simple, all basic cutting, shaping, giving the vocal its space. Each individual layer has its own EQ. And if you see, I think I just literally copy pasted it. Yep. Nothing else. And this is going to a bus. Here, what I've done is I've used a doubler just to make it wide.
Correct.
From the top. Then I introduced same 10 to 14K boost on an SSL. Nothing else is done here. There is a high pass to cut the lows. And then it's going to this layer, this thing.
Nice.
But this is quoting Jason Joshua again. This is one of the biggest and best parallel compressors out there. This is my default setting. I've disabled all the other modules except this compression thing.
Correct.
So this, without it,
What? Why you worry?
enabling it,
What? Why you worry?
it just brings everything up front. This works parallelly. Yeah. So again, this is the last edition because without this in the mix,
Like this, how you live like this? Why you worry about it? Get up on
can't hear it.
like this, how you live like this? Why you worry about it? Get up on my dick, get up out the way. What you think this is? And we ain't worried about it, huh? Why she skirt up with it? Ask me how you get like this.
Correct. नहीं वो perceived distance भी कम हो गया because पहले ऐसा लग रहा था that it was like noise which is coming from outside. Now it's like a crowd and I can imagine the video. Man,
that's the only reason. Yeah, bro. Bijoy, shout out to Bijoy. Yeah. The only reason I did that, instead of, you could have asked like, why don't you just increase the gain? But the depth factor will go away. It will be a dry signal on top of you put in front. I didn't want that. We need a little bit of fattening, and that can be achieved. I could have sent this to a parallel, then blended it in. Or I know this plugin does the same thing, but probably has a different EQ curve in it. So I just used it. Simple.
Right.
So that concludes the mix session. And from here, what I do is I'll just go through the bus processes once. I'll just give you a quick insight here as well. So this is basically everything, the entire channel. And on the right, this is the main thing. Main channel. Here, there is no processing. I only have my meters and audio transmitters here. This doesn't do anything. I've set this template in a way where all the 5 faders, 6 faders, which we initially spoke about, it all has this NLS buses in it by default, but this is not doing anything this time. It's at 0. I use this to automate. Like I said, I don't like automating the fader. So I use this fader. If I need any automations, I just use this to automate the entire group together. But in this case, I didn't need it. In the music bus, I added a soothe with the same sidechain for the kick, which we did first. This is just to level out a little bit of it to make sure it's compressing enough. And now the bass and the drums, they go to the separate new bus called drum and bass. Here, straightforward, a default setting, like push the drive in this end setting. I think it's a Neve setting, and I reduce the mix. I think it's super dry just to give that last set of harmonics. And ultimately, the music, the sound effects going to the beat bus, and the vocal dry and the vocal wet, which is all of these, going to the vocal bus. Final set of gain staging right here, bringing everything to that -6 dB headroom or whatever. Yeah. Then a standard clip just to shave that transients on top. This is on the instrumental, by the way.
Big stepper, underground methods, top-notch.
These are the things I don't want. This is just going to confuse my limiter a little bit more. So it's hard clipping, it's transparent. I don't need it. So I just clipped it up. Then a Pultec 30 hertz, 0.1 or 2, 3 dB boost, just so that there is something lifting it. And that's it for the mix process. This is just to give you guys a loudness while showing. This doesn't apply. I mute this. This is for me to hear sort of like how will it sound mastered if I'm pushing the volume up, and if it's cramping up, how am I hearing it? This is just for that. So once this is done, I've done a small gain stage over here. So my final meter, it's hitting -6. I'm good. Bounce it as a wave file. I usually do master in the same project, but it's very subjective. Depends on my mood and depends on what the song needs. And some songs I take the top-down approach where I set the master bus first. But today's world, I don't think it's working out for me. So just left it aside, saved it, exported it. Now onto the master session.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same session. What I do is once the mix is done, I go save it as a master and I remove all the files. So I have the same session, same labels. I don't have to do it again. And I have the same mix bus, master bus, and I just remove everything else. Okay. So you can ignore this clean cut. This was for the label. We need a clean version. So it's just that. But this is my 2-track mix of the song. And like I mentioned earlier, like you asked, the chopped and screwed part, it came back to me as this. So I sent the entire mix. After he did it, it came back to me and then I just stitched it together. That's it.
Nice.
And now these goes to this mix bus again. Don't get confused. It's the master bus, but I'm just going to run through all the plugins. But first, let me play the mix alone and let me enable the master.
Correct.
So this is just the mix. This is what we've been going through till now. After master. Wait a minute, get it how you live it.
Yeah. Lovely.
So it's again, since I mixed it, since I know what the song needs, I don't usually think too much. Like you mentioned, record like there's no mixing, mix like there's no mastering. I've been following that for years now. I'll make sure my mix just with the limiter bangs harder than a master. So this was mastered in a separate day. I'd like to do that, to have probably take a break in between, like a 2-3 day break before mastering the song, just to get fresh perspective. So this was a byproduct of that. So I'm just going to quickly run you through the plugins, and let's see. Again, Ozone 11.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all it does is adding a little bit of lows. So before I go into this, I listen to the master. I listen to few songs, not while mastering, but a day before mastering. I'll play the loud mix with few other songs in the same genre just to see the tonal balance. Is my kick sounding good? Is can I individually push it up, or can I use a stereo EQ and push the frequencies up?
Got
If
it.
I have to individually push it up, I go back and work on the mix. So I know the mix is sounding good. I'm in good terms with it. Then I start the master. Coming to Ozone, I felt like we could use a little bit of that lowest of pump in the song. So there is a 54 hertz 1 dB boost. This just hit. Is just, this is the energy of the song. This is what is making the song what it is. And I've got, actually, yeah, there is a nice bell, but it's sort of shaping it weirdly. I don't know how this happened, but I think it's an intuitive thing. Or I might have used this tonal balance here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is just to have an understanding, and this could have, and it's also that Fletcher Munson masking, bro. This could probably be that, because I'm increasing lows, and if the highs are also having the same energy, the track is gonna clip and it's gonna distort. It's gonna become all sorts of things. So a little bit of control and tad bit of 18, 19K for that sizzle. Then this is one of the best things created by humans, in my opinion, this impact module. It controls, it basically compresses and uncompresses your signal. I don't know exactly what it does and how it works. I've just pulled down the bands. I think it's all default bands. I didn't change anything. The moment you pull up impact, these are the bands it gives you.
Correct.
So pull down the lows. This can control how dynamic your song can be, because without this, it will feel like the song is super, like, even though we did all of this, just adding another layer of impact or any other multi-band compression elements, it can show you. So this is basically a multi-band compressor.
Correct.
So if I play the delta signal, this is what it's doing. So whatever transients I lost in the mix, I'm adding it back through this. And I was able to make that decision because of that 1-2 days gap I take.
Correct.
It's a very simple yet defining decision, I feel.
No, it's very important because, eventually you need to get a different perspective when you're mastering a track. Mastering or mixing engineer की जो सोच होती है, जो गाने को देखने का perspective होता है, that's totally different. And when one single person is doing both the jobs, तो वो switch करना बहुत ज़रूरी है.
Definitely. That's what I think all my clients and everyone who works with me know, that they know it by now that I don't master the same day. They know, okay, the mix is done. Okay, I'll talk to you in a day or two. So yeah, that's moving on to the clarity. Again, this is like Soothe and Gulfos, but the Ozone version of it. I just, choose everything above low mids. It's going to change the curve a little bit. I'm fine with it. This is all it's doing. So it's doing some. Have you used Gulfos before?
Yeah, I always use it. It's mostly on the master chain. So
it's the tame and what is the other knob? There's tame and there's something more, right?
There's one thing that reduces. One is boost.
Yeah, it's a recover and tame.
Basically, yeah.
So it's the same thing. I just happen to contain this inside it, and there's a tilt EQ. It's tilting the song. So since I added a lot of low end here, I'm using this to make the curve like this. So basically like ducking the low end and pushing the highs. And then a dynamic EQ. This is purely for resonances. So you can see we don't need any of this. It's dynamically ducking them. Yeah, this is in the mid band. So I'm only doing the mids for this section. Just cleaning it up, nothing crazy. And then that's pretty much the processing, I think. And then we go to this TG mastering chain just to use the spreader, just for the width, just to make it feel bigger than life again.
Got it.
Followed by a Pro C. Since we widened it up, there's a good chance our low end is also widened up.
True.
So cut the lows in the sides. And this was a very last minute thing. I'll get to this in just a bit.
Okay.
Followed by a saturate, like overall saturation. This is again one of my most favorite saturators out there. You can see I would have added 8% of saturation, little bit of pentoed harmonic saturation. That's it. And mix level reduced it to taste, just so it feels right. I'm not hearing anything wrong, so I don't have to be very technical about what it's doing. I just feel right. I feel good about this, so I'm leaving it there. Simple. And then while going into the limiter, I felt like it was compressing a lot of my lows.
Got it.
So came back, 35 hertz, 3 dB shelf, done. I'm louder now.
खुद ही पहले कर दिया लो, reduce.
Done. I'm louder. Yeah. See? So I didn't need this. The moment I put a limiter, I knew, okay, this is cramping up. So let me clear some space. Because what I have to think going back, my first process here is that huge, same 50 hertz low boost, but it's also boosting everything below 50.
True.
So I realize it's definitely doing something to my master. Let me pull it down. Set. Now coming to limiter, clipping it, just the transients, you won't actually see this work also. Yeah, somewhere, some peaks, there is whatever peaks there are, I just use it to my advantage just so that it doesn't affect the limiter. That's it. And then coming to the ozone maximizer, there are 2 limiters. That's it. Mastering is done. This one, I'd like to use the delta method to pick the limiter I like. So delta is basically just gives you the signal. Solos what it's doing, right? So when I play it, I'll know what limiter works best for me if the delta replicates my rhythm of the song. So if you notice, but if I choose a different delta method, this isn't clipping. Let's say I use modern. I can hear it do more.
Correct.
So I don't want this. If I use another one, just showing. You see how the kick is being affected now?
Same for the kick, yeah.
So I just used the one I like. I think it was clipping.
Yeah.
I'm hearing very little attenuation and it's doing like 1 to 2 dB. I choose this, then I increase the gain.
With the big dogs, fuck the laws, loyal with me, we ain't got a call.
And I'd like to use another limiter just in case. So this was about that loudness. So coming to the LUFS thing.
Yeah.
Every song I heard, every song I've tested out, they don't do -14. It's above -10.
-14.
Yeah.
And even today, I don't think any song is less than -8 also.
Exactly. That to a song like this, -8 would be the bare minimum.
Probably -6, 7, 5.
-6 could be a good thing. I did go to -6, but I realized it was way too hot and I didn't want that. So that's why the second limiter exists. There is like a good 3 dB of gain and slowest attack, fastest release almost, and it's at oversampling 16 because of the fact that I've used a lot of processors and it is definitely going to induce a new form of distortion in any way just to be safe, 16. And I don't like true peak limiting at all because this is what my first clipper is doing. So I don't want this to do the same thing again.
Got it.
And the channel linking is always at 0%. So my mids and sides are limited differently. So if I play this, you will see a good amount of gain reduction. But again, using the delta signal here, now it's catching the hi-hats also, if you notice.
The artifacts like sound, basically they are the hi-hats.
Exactly. So now I know my drums are also getting limited, but I'm still not hearing my vocals. So I know I'm not squashing the mix. I'm only letting go of that headroom. So this is my visual and ear,
That's a pretty good trick.
Yeah. So if I push this a little bit more, it's going to get louder. But in the delta signal, you will also hear the vocals. You might hear music elements. I don't want anything because I know my mix is constructed in a way where the drums are the loudest. So this is only taming the drums, no matter where I play it from. Not even the bass. So I know even though the value looks like 4 dB, I know for a fact it's only because my drums are 4 dB louder. And this is bringing everything. It's meaning the peaks are also going down and the low, the dips are also coming up. So it's getting loud. So now when I play it, you can see the LUFS levels.
Like this, how you live like this? Why you worry about it? Get up on my dick, get up out the way. What you think this is? We ain't worried about it. Why she skirt the whip? They ask me how you get like this? How you live like this? Why you worry about it? Get up on my dick, get up out the way. What you think this is? We ain't worried.
That's about it.
That's pretty cool, man. -6.
-6, yeah. But this is, I still don't trust this meter. I use the Insight and Isotope RX has this, the overall, it can calculate how much the waveform is. I trust that more. So here also you'll get around the same region.
Boy, for the ones who gone, RIPs in your memory, we carry on. When I die, they will not bury me, not what I want.
-6, -7 is where the song
More
is.
like the average, yeah, because max it's touching -5, it says.
Yeah, that is momentary. that's probably one hit somewhere in the song. Right? Integrated is what we need to really see, right? And this limiter has a output ceiling of minus 0.1. That's it. Fairly simple. That's what I was able to do this because I know it's my mix and I know I've done certain things there, so I don't have to do it here. But if I'm mastering someone else's song, if it was mixed by someone, probably the entire chain will be different. So it's never going to be the same. So that's pretty much it, bro. Then we bounce it. Then this one, same. Even here, I didn't do this is that breakdown part you asked.
Correct.
Yeah, baby, go bring out the goodies, stuck in it.
I didn't see there is no processing for this specifically. I just let it go with the limiter, whatever master processing I had, because I know this is going to limit a little bit more. But at the same time, mathematically speaking, the song's fundamental is not the same as this. Let's say the fundamental of this song is at 60 to 70 hertz or 150 to 160 hertz. Since this is pitched down, the fundamental will go even lower.
True.
So there is a good chance the low end is acting little differently. But since it's pitched down, there is a little bit of quality loss in the audio. That's natural. When you're pitching it down, the phase gets all over the place. So I used that to my advantage. Didn't think too much, didn't automate the gain knob, none of that shit. Fairly static, take it. That's it. This is how it feeds. Because it's chopped and screwed. It's just chopped and screwed. You can't expect that to be clean. So just went with it. And yeah, man, I think that's pretty much it.
Amazing, man. It was a lovely session and even मेरे को काफ़ी कुछ मिला that I could take from this session.
I'm glad.
And
I'm
I
glad.
hope community को भी काफ़ी कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा and they must have enjoyed this breakdown.
Definitely. I hope so. I hope so.
And thanks to you for taking out time and इतना बढ़िया session देने के लिए.
Yeah, it's all good, bro. I've been following your stuff for years now. I think you're one of the only dudes in India who's doing this the right way, and glad to be,
Thanks, man. Just trying my
sharing
best
this with you.
and मेरे को लगता है कि awareness बहुत important है.
Definitely.
And many people think कि this is the goal, like going to the industry, but they don't think beyond that. When you think beyond that, आप automatically उन लोगों के साथ उस music के साथ connect होगे जो आपको वहाँ तक ले जाएगा.
Definitely.
So I feel you're doing a wonderful job and सुनता ही रहता हूँ मैं गाने and it feels really proud to see
Thanks
you,
a lot, bro. Thanks a lot.
And,
I'm glad we made this work, bro. It was a fun session, and I hope everything was clear. And I'd like to do more of this because I was planning to do live streams on my own, but just never found the time. And you hit me up at the right time.
I'm just trying to do something for the community and your involvement is making it possible. तो मेरे को लगता है कि ये वाला वीडियो एक बार जाता है, if it's being well received, तो बहुत मजा आएगा. We can occasionally do some breakdowns here and
Definitely, bro. I think we need to do LSD, bro. Char Diwari's LSD some
Done
point.
करते हैं फिर तो मजा
Because
आएगा.
that is a mammoth of a project. There's so much into it, and you'll see after listening to demo and the master, you'll know. But again, when the time comes and whenever you're free and if you want to do it, let's see how this video.
लेकिन it was such a wonderful session and more than the session, it was wonderful talking to you. क्योंकि हमारी भी कभी इतनी बात नहीं हुई, but मजा आएगा ये सेशन करके. तो I have realized कि कभी वैसे ही मिलेंगे हम लोग, कभी मुलाकात भी होती है physically, तो बढ़िया अच्छी discussions होंगी. And
bro, I'm coming down to the studio ASAP, bro. I need to see the studio and just be there, just observe.
बिल्कुल,
Definitely.
100%.